and welcome to Adventures in TV Land. For this adventure, we're doing something a little bit different. We're driving around here in Lawndale, Illinois. Lawndale is located along Route 66 here in Illinois. There's honestly, there is not any attractions to speak of anymore here in Lawndale. But there was an incident that happened here back in July 25th, 1977. And that is the subject of this video. So we drive around here, and on the evening of July 25th, 1977, a 10-year-old boy named Marlon Lowe was outside playing. He was playing with a couple friends. I believe one of them was his cousin, and the three boys were playing, and they saw two giant, what they assumed at first were just birds flying around in the sky. However, as we soon find out, they're not so sure if they were birds or perhaps something else, because the larger of those two creatures, the flying creatures, eventually swept towards the ground and grabbed in its talons the young Marlon and began lifting him up in the air. His mother saw him out the window, came running out, and they started pounding on him. Her husband came out as well, and then there were two family friends in addition to the kids that were there, and they were screaming, and eventually the creature lifted Marlon about 40 feet up in the air at one point before dropping him and flew off with the other giant flying creature, the giant flying bird. Now, the Lowes reported this story, called the police. They made a report, and they were basically made a laughing stock of what had happened. No one in the area seemed to believe them. And actually, things went so far as people even were so cruel as they left dead pigeons and dead birds at their doorsteps in the weeks that followed the incident. But Marlon's mother, Ruth, she went to the library, and after doing some research, claimed that the creature looked similar to what is a California condor, except it was much larger. It had a wingspan of at least 4 feet, if not more. And thus, on that July 25th day of 1977, that evening, the Thunderbirds came to Lawndale. That is what this incident has been called and referred to as, the Thunderbirds in Illinois. Later on, in other parts of Illinois, over the following, I believe it was basically the next 7 to 10 days, there were other sightings of these two giant creatures. Eventually, one person, he was a mailman. He actually was very kind of skeptical of some of these stories that he heard. But he saw one of the creatures come down and pick up a pig from a pig farm and fly off with it. And he became, a believer in what he had seen and everything that had occurred. The birds, I'm not for sure, I can't remember the final location that these creatures were last spotted in, but they were headed north. And before they entered the areas close to Chicago, the suburbs there, those were the last reported sightings of these Thunderbirds. Now, the reason that these referred to and these creatures were called Thunderbirds, being a resident of Illinois and growing up in southern Illinois, about 40 miles from St. Louis, stories like this is not uncommon. In the nearby city of Alton, Illinois, there is the Piasol bird, which there is all these legends about the Piasol bird, and it was painted on the cliffs, and it's written down, and they're illustrations from explorers and different things like that. And Thunderbird, I've heard stories as a kid. There were people they talked about when they were younger, some older people around town, stories. I don't know if they happened here or other places, but they talked of Thunderbirds. It was a Native American creature of lore and of legend, of mystery. In this area, the Native Americans around here, I believe, like the Kickapoo and so on, the Thunderbirds were part of the culture, and it was something that was believed in, that they did exist. Now, there's been no sightings of Thunderbirds since that summer of 1977. But it is something interesting, something fascinating to think about. That what occurred here in this small town nearly 50 years ago. A young boy was picked up by a giant creature, a giant bird, that attempted to carry him off. So if that happened here in Lawndale, the day the Thunderbirds came to town, what other stories out there of things that we hear might actually be true? I don't know. It's just kind of interesting to think about. It's almost as though, it kind of gives you, like the birds from Alfred Hitchcock, that movie, kind of takes on a whole new meaning. If Thunderbirds exist, if there were a lot of them, what would they do? What kind of havoc would they create? But there's probably not a lot of them now. But where did they go? Where do they live? What do they eat? Are there any still left? I don't know. Just raises a lot of questions. And I just found the story quite interesting. The story of when the day when the Thunderbirds came to Lawndale. This has been another adventure in TV land. Thank you for watching. Until next time. That's a wrap.